Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 238. My name is Bret, aka Enigma 9011, and if you like what you hear here, we're always royalty here. If you like what you hear, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, if so, and then if you want more fun and chaos, go over to twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there, where we stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, play a variety of games, working through the backlog, etc. Today, one central focus, split into two parts. We are back from PAX East this year, so we're going to be talking about all the fun happenings of PAX East, my thoughts and feelings on the convention this year, and then, like I said, we'll dive into the games later and break those down, the ones that I did get to try out, maybe a few I kind of saw in passing, and go from there. So yeah, let's talk about the event itself. So first time I went was last year. This was the second time going. However, this was the first time I went for all 4 days. And I will say it was certainly different. And I mean that in a good way and a bad way. All of the negative feelings I have towards the event, or at least most of them, I will say were self-imposed. Is that what I want to say? Self-inflicted. Let's go with that. There was a lot of doubt, unfortunately, going into this event once I got there and once the ball got rolling, and kind of how I felt of, I guess, social situations, or how I thought things were going, unfortunately. And that was just on me. It was just, I guess, expecting something different in terms of hangouts, but then also not putting myself out there enough and talking and being social. Just kind of being there, hovering, and I thought that was definitely something I could do better. So those first 2 nights especially, or first 2 days of the convention specifically, it was a little rough city, and I also got into my head of just like how the flow of the convention was going itself. Going last year, for example, was Saturday. Saturday is typically the busiest. It makes sense. It's the weekend. Everybody's free and available. I think I got 9 demos in a single day and Saturday, and then I kind of cleaned up a few extra Sunday. This year was not the case. With extra time, somehow I still got around the same amount of games in total, or less. The first 2 days, I think I hit 3 demos each. And I think, yeah, definitely having that was frustrating, because it is lesser traffic on a Thursday, on a Sunday. So to have it where somehow it didn't work out, or I wasn't patient enough to have only a few games under my belt, I don't know, felt a little weird. Kind of didn't help set the mood and help my mindset and stuff like that. So in terms of negativity, mainly, like I said, it was on me. It was just the imposter syndrome kicking in, being like, nope, you don't belong here. People don't want to hang out and whatever. I will say the back half of things definitely cleaned that up, and I knew in the back of my head, like, people are busy, people are working, people are running around, people are doing those things. It just sucked. By the end of it, like I said, once again, it did all play out fine, and it came to the realization, like, you were in your head, stupid. Everything was fine. You're good. So once I did get home from the event, you know, it was sad, because, like, yeah, it's over. I didn't think I capitalized on things super duper well, and wish I kind of could redo it, but that's what next year's for. So there's that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it a little bit more outside of that. I meant to say this at the beginning, you know, planning out this podcast, but like I said, we're talking about the games in the second half, so if you want that, here's the nice little timestamp. Skip ahead to the more important stuff in the games and things like that, because we're going to be just going kind of personal, what happened day to day, outside of the negativity, and what I did. So, first things first, shout out to Joe from the Trophy Room, Mr. Bad Bit. Snagged my ticket this year, and then, those hotels. I don't know if it was time of year or whatever it was, but man, they were expensive. So he reached out, was like, hey, I need a roomie. and that was awesome. He had picked a great hotel, great location that was right down the street from the convention center. So rooming with him was great. We got to hang out a little bit more and talk about like Giant Bomb going, and then Polygon. Shout out to Giant Bomb, being independent now, which is great. We talked about stuff in the games industry. He had a preview for Doom: The Dark Ages, so we got to kind of pick his brain about that, and we talked about that process. And it was just a good time hanging out with him and chatting it up, so I really appreciated that. So the first day, driving, last year we had our own nightmares of driving, but this year it wasn't that bad. Actually went really, really fast, as you guys saw. I recorded the podcast going down, had the same intention going back. Not so lucky that time. But with the podcast and then talking to Lady, the trip flew by, driving down, which is great, especially being a 3-hour drive. That went great. Traffic wasn't bad. I think I hit one spot where it was just construction. Nothing you could do there. But setting things up, man, talk about bad timing. The whole work week, aka the 2 days leading into PAX, just really excited, watching a bunch of videos or listening to people's thoughts about last year, getting excited, getting hyped. Work smooth sailing. Everything's going great. Don't have to worry about a thing. And boy, does it come crashing down on Wednesday. Some of our automations weren't working. Excuse me. To process orders, so we had to make them manually, and there was a bunch, and it's like, oh no, I'm going to be away. I am kind of needed for this portion while others can do it. They have a lot on their hands as well already, so I don't want to just dump it on them. So I left a few hours later, maybe an hour and a half, later than I anticipated. So I got there later than anticipated. And then I'm also have this work thing over my head of like, you need to log in. No one made me. This was all my own thing. Let's make that clear. You got to log in. You got to fix this. You got to fix that. You got to try and help out whilst you're gone. So that was a big stressor going into it. Eventually, after the first night, that did get cleared up the next day. So thank goodness I didn't have to worry about that going forward. But so when I eventually arrived at the hotel, very nice hotel once again, kind of hung out, chilled for a bit. My intention was to edit the podcast immediately. That did not go well because Wi-Fi sucked, and uploading to Google Drive to then download it to then go edit it, nope, not the case. Luckily iCloud saved my ass the next morning. So I was doing that originally, then it wasn't working, so I was like, well, might as well work on stuff. Joe at the time and some of our friends from 6-1, and I think some other people too, were at a baseball game. And Joe had texted me, he's like, hey, do you want to go, while I was driving. And I knew the guys were going previously. I know Kyle from 6-1 had Blue Skied, whatever that's called, posted about it, and they were getting a group together. And, I've never been to a baseball game. I don't really care for baseball, but it was like, yeah, that could be fun. So when I got the invite, it was like, I'll definitely think about it. Lady was kind enough to look up times of like when the game actually started and whatnot. By the time I got there, I think they were in the 9th inning. Fenway was a little bit of a drive away with an Uber. So I was like, by the time I get there, there's not going to be much of the game left. Nah, I really wanted to. But I was like, nah, it's not going to make it. It doesn't make sense to go spend the money for the ticket just to be there for, a short amount of time. So I skipped out on that. Like I said, worked on work stuff and caught up. Joe eventually made his way back. We hung out and chatted. So that was a good time there. So that was the arriving there. Overall, just before we go day to day, just because I'm following my notes here, just some quick shout outs. Let's see. Sorry, I know I'm bouncing around. So like I said, proud of some social interactions. I think I did a good job of introducing myself to some people. There was a few missed opportunities. Jill Grote, Jenny Wyndham, both from Indie Council podcast I listened to. I had the opportunity to introduce myself and didn't. And there's a few other people too. Like I said, back half was much better. Hotel was close. It was a nice walk back and forth. I think it was about 9 minutes. Very, very simple to get to. Weather we lucked out on. It was supposed to rain the entire time. And we only had one bad day, which I'll get to. Rest were totally fine, very comfortable. So I appreciated that. As we're about to jump into day one in the convention itself, did seem a lot, well, not a lot. It seems smaller than last year. Now, granted, I'm only comparing it to, obviously, 1 year. But it seemed like everything was just, like, scaled in a little bit. And there felt like there was less play areas or demo stations that people could hop onto, obviously try out the games, stuff like that. So that led to some frustrations in terms of lines. I will say the convention definitely got better as it progressed, as people learned, oh, this is a game that people are excited for. Let's put a line here. I understand why they don't want to plan super far ahead and then have this big tape line going, but man, there should be at least something. There was a lot of games, or a lot of booths rather, that I felt had just a glob of people hanging out, and it was very hard to tell like who's waiting for what, if there's multiple games at a station, what's the order of people, stuff like that. So as it went on, more of those tape lines were made, but it just led to frustrations later on. On a positive, learned a lot about the convention center, an event with more time and exploring around. Just talk about that more. And then I'll say one closing remark just in general before we get to the day-to-day. Once again, I apologize for jumping around. Media. So media badges. So there's different badges. We had our 4-day badge, which... here it is. So we had our 4-day badge. You can get, obviously, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, whatever you want individually. But there's also content creator badges. There's media badges. There's enforcer badges, which are the volunteers. And exhibitor badges, which are the people at the booths themselves. So media and content, it's a special badge, obviously meant for people who are covering the event. And we applied this year. No luck there. That's fine. That's totally understandable. But they get like a special room that they can hang out in. It's a more quiet area, drop their bags off, little lockers and whatnot. They get a media hour on Thursday. So they get to go in the show floor from 9 to 10 on Thursday, check out things a little bit more before the masses get in there. They also have the opportunity to make appointments and book appointments with the booths that are there, the representatives, check out the games, do coverage, do interviews, check out the demos, etc. Now, this is obviously not hard. This is interesting for me to say, to be like, when I'm not media, to be like, oh, this is the worst, blah, blah, blah. Because I get the reason they're there. Obviously for fun, hopefully for themselves. But they are there for coverage. They are there to help the games, the publishers, developers there. Let more people know about their game. It got a little frustrating with media this year, I felt. And I feel like media should have more time early, like exclusive time. Like only that Thursday is fine, but I think they could benefit from having more, especially Thursday. Tech issues. Even when we entered, the normal people, some people were still trying to figure out booths that first day, even second day, and getting things up and running. I feel like if media had that first hour every day, that might help a little bit, because the hurdle we jumped into or ran into, media is great, content creators are great, once again, because you're helping the teams there get out, publicity, all that jazz. It is really frustrating when you're standing in a line and a media person is there holding up a booth, because yes, they need to play the games, going through, especially if it's a publisher's booth where they have 6, 7, however many games there, going through every demo, then doing an interview, and then whilst they're doing the interview, that station can't be used because they might go back to it. There was a few times that happened, and it was just like, you have a sticky note on your table that says this is a 15-minute demo, and yet I've been standing here for 30, 45 minutes. We haven't moved. Just a little bit of a yikes there. I just wish things were maybe labeled a little bit clearer, like this is a media station, or these are the times that we have appointments, or something like that. I get why maybe they wouldn't want to post that, but it's just super frustrating when specifically there is a time posted to let you know, hey, this is this. I think one of the booths I was at, had an interview going, and another station opened up that was not the media one, but they were all involved in the interview, so nobody was like handling the station. So I was like, I guess I'm going. So I just popped over and sat down. So I don't know. I feel like media and content had more opportunities to meet and sit down and have their own time. Maybe that would help with that. I get it. They're probably scheduled a lot of appointments throughout the day, so the 1 hour every day isn't going to help that a lot, but it might alleviate some stress points. So let's talk about day one. Let's talk about actually heading into the convention center. So day one, I already mentioned the convention center is right down the road from us. Bit of a walk, but not bad at all. So I headed to the convention early. Like I said, Joe, Trophy Room, he had a media badge, so he was going early. So I figured, I didn't go with him. I think I went a little bit after him, maybe 15, 20 minutes after. But I was heading down, and I'm about to leave, walk out, and I just hear, sir. And I turn around like, yes? Two nice guys. They were also going to the convention from Florida, a pair of brothers. They're like, hey, are you going to the convention center? Like, do you know where you're going? I'm like, I got a loose idea. I would luckily saw it outside of our window, so I was like, yeah, I got that. I know where we're going. And they're like, can we tag along with you? I was like, sure, whatever, why not? So it was their first time, so talked to them. Like I said, they were very nice, talking about their first experience, what they were looking forward to, what they played. They were very excited about Clair Obscura, a recent indie RPG that has come out. They were talking about that. They were looking forward to seeing Ben Starr and the Final Fantasy stuff. So it was cool just making those interactions, which I will say PAX has been an amazing convention for these kinds of things. Is like, obviously, these are your people. You could talk to anybody about anything, whether it's the board game stuff, the video game stuff, cosplay, if that's up your alley. Like, there's a lot of different topics and conversations that you can have with a lot of very kind people and very welcoming people. PAX is a very good convention of, like, just be cool people. It's very trans friendly. It's very LGBTQIA friendly. Like, it just was very nice to see all that positivity around there, and just people being themselves and being happy and smiling and laughing and all that stuff. So these guys here kicked it off for me in a good way of like, hey, nice people to talk to. So walked with them to the convention center. We chatted the whole time, like I said, and then I got in there. I didn't have my badge yet. Depends on when you order it or buy it. You can have it mailed to you, or you go pick it up after a certain date. That was another reason I wanted to get there early Wednesday, because they had badge pickup Wednesday night. Oh well. Got the badge. It was super easy. There was no line. It was the same last year. Saturday I was lucky enough to be given a badge, but Sunday I had a badge and picked it up, and there was no line there. Same thing here on Thursday. I thought, it's day one. It's going to be backed up. Nope. Walked right up. Hey, here you go. Thanks. Okay, cool. Then went and stood in line. Something else I haven't done. So you kind of navigate around the convention center, and they have enforcers, the volunteers every once in a while that are all, the enforcers are amazing. Very nice people. Answer any questions you might have. Very positive, because they got to bring up the energy to make sure you're having fun, especially because you're waiting in lines or, whatever it is. We had a few enforcers hyping us up with music as we went along. I think one had like his own little speaker playing Barbie Girl. That was hilarious. And then once you get into the line section, so when I entered that first day, there was like 4 giant rectangles of like where they're going to pull people in groups at a time. So I got in that first rectangle and saw a bunch of enforcers. We had one guy with a big whiteboard and a kazoo, and he had the kazoo in his mouth, and he was just using that to communicate, like he wasn't actually talking or anything. But on his whiteboard, he had Game of the Year predictions, so he was just tallying votes of like what people thought Game of the Year was going to be for 2025. So that was fun, and he was there the whole week. So seeing that board change and grow over time and adapt or update was a nice thing. There was one girl who was doing Who's That Pokemon? So she either drew a little silhouette or printed it out, and you would guess it. She got me the first day. It was a Ditto instead of the actual Pokemon, so that was fun. But saw her a few different days, and she would have a different picture, and it would be the 50-50 of which one it was. The Duolingo bird was there for some reason, just someone dressed up in that, giving out pipe cleaners. So there's a lot of fun people there, and they got great energy. So I stood in that line for maybe a half hour, and then the floor opened up, and it was just that fun rush and excitement of like, hey, everything's starting up. So I scoped the floor. Going into the event, I noted down a few things of like, I really want to play XYZ, that list. So I was kind of just binging around. I didn't jump into anything right away, but just seeing where things were located. Because you do have a navigation app on your phone you can get that tells you like your schedules and your events. It can send you reminders. They have little paper maps that show everything for the expo hall. But sometimes the map is not most accurate. I think last year, like, Nintendo hopped in super late, so like that bumped a whole lot of stuff. But yeah, you got the map so you can kind of go around and see what's up, and it's not super specific. Like, obviously this one's very zoomed out. Oh, here you go. So there's the main expo hall map. Kinda. No, that's just featured exhibitors and then the tabletop map. So you don't even know where the indies and stuff are. It's just like, all right, go have fun. It's all there. So unless you're really hunting down a specific thing and like know, oh, X publisher is at this location, then you're not going to know. And they try and label the floor with what the booth numbers are. Not great. So anyways, I was walking around trying to find just like mentally checkpoint. Okay, there's this game. Okay, there's this game. Some have really small booths that are very inconspicuous. Some have bigger booths like Devolver, Elden Ring, and Night Rain, which, oh boy, we'll talk about that later. And, just kind of try and take mental notes of that. So I'm walking around, and I run into the 6-1 crew. So this is the first time I ran into at the event Kyle, Kelsey, Mike. I'm trying to think if anybody else was with them. Light and Dan, so Lightweight Gaming and her husband Dan were there. I think they walked away just as I was walking up, but I met them later. So hugs all around, very nice and great to see those guys. And that's when we walked around and played some games. We'll talk about the games later, once again, in part 2. Met for the first time CJ Danny B of the Playlog. Is it Playlog? No, hold on. Playlog podcast? Where's my phone? He does a podcast about indie games too, and has his own YouTube and Twitch that he does. I was standing in line for one game and made sure to introduce myself there. He's also friendly with 6-1. Sorry, I just want to make sure I give a proper shout out. Oh God, podcast. Yep, Playlog podcast, an indie gaming podcast. So introduced myself to him while I was in line. He was very nice, and we would run into him again later on. Food. All right, so I've heard not the nightmare fuel, but the convention center food's not great. It's all about the food trucks. Certainly is. Could I tell you what I ate last year? No. But I'll tell you what my home base was this time, and what had me surviving this whole weekend outside of the, breakfast at the hotel. So I brought some snacks. I did bring Pop-Tarts. I did bring granola bars just in case I needed something quick. Mac and cheese food truck. You were the homie. Little expensive, probably, you know, in a grand scheme of things, not awful. But man, it was so worth it. It was great every day. So they had 4 options: classic, pulled pork, mac and cheese, so just the pulled pork on top of it, buffalo chicken mac and cheese. I think the last one was like bacon something. That was lunch every day. I was like, all right, I found what I need. I love it. It tastes great. Going to you. They had other options as well. They had the General Convention Center. They have on some of the second floor, first floor, it's weird, ground floor. They had some sandwiches and stuff, maybe hot dogs. I think down one of the corridors there was other stuff. I didn't really venture into that area too much. Apparently there's food courts outside of the convention center. At least I've seen that in other people's vlogs from previous years. No idea where it is. I couldn't tell you. But inside they had a few. So it was the mac and cheese truck. They had an empanada truck. They had like a fried dough, deep fried Oreos, which RIP I didn't get. They had an ice cream thing. I think that was it. Yeah. So you had some options in there. There's other options around. But mac and cheese truck, I stuck with you. You guys are the homies. And I will say shout out, kind of circling back to me discovering more of the convention, as we'll talk about more about day one. But so lunchtime, sometimes finding a place to sit is a little difficult because there's a lot of people there. The convention center is great at this because there is seating everywhere. A lot of people tend to focus on the expo hall, which I certainly did this year. Explore outside that thing. So the whole thing's a rectangle, and you have the expo halls down. You have the ground floor where you have panel rooms and then just this line of windows. There's benches along there. There's big comfy chairs and whatnot. There's a section in the middle where they do, I think it's like a dance, like Just Dance area over here. There's a Jackbox stage where people just sit on the floor. There's a big screen and you're playing Jackbox all day. More conference rooms. On one side there is a free PlayStation, so they have a lot of different consoles there where you can go and sign out certain games and then just play them in this room on a setup. There's console tourneys, which we'll talk a little bit more in a moment. There's a quiet space if you just need to disconnect. There was a family gaming room if you had young ones and wanted to play something together. There was a coat check. There was a room where you could fix or adjust your cosplay. There was a trans visibility room, so like just a even more safe space, I guess you could say. There was D&D rooms you could go into if you scheduled a session and like do a little one-off with a DM that was there. A lot of cool stuff there. So you have that on level 1. And then level 2, there's even more conference halls. That's where the media room was. That's where the content lounge was. Oh boy. And then level 3 is like the main theater. So the big ass room where they had like the keynote speech. So there's a lot of stuff that you could do. But I will say shout out to the Jackbox stage. That was a nice place just to relax. That's where I had my lunch pretty much every day, was just find somewhere to sit, watch some people play Jackbox, have that noise in the background, and relax. Nobody was up my butt. You weren't on top of each other. You had space, you had room, and it was a nice place to vibe and kind of hang out while you were eating. So I had lunch. Went back to the hotel around 4 because I was kind of spent for the day, like I talked about my frustrations. I had no idea what plans were for the evening. I had written down a few things of like things potentially to do. I had mentioned the tourney room before. So every day there are numerous random console games that they have tournaments for, as well as tabletop, but consoles was the one I looked at. So you had games like Soul Calibur 2, Gang Beasts, Balatro, Power Wash Simulator. I don't know how that's competitive, but it was there. And 2 of them that caught my attention for Thursday night was NBA Jam and NFL Blitz. Now, these are 2 games I've watched some streamers play, and it's just fun and chaotic to watch. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go. I won't participate, but I'll just go. I'll watch. hang out with people, just be amongst people and just kind of take in the energy kind of thing. So I was thinking about that, and I wasn't sure 100% what plans were with anybody, if they were going to be hanging out anywhere. Seems like the Westin, which is a hotel like right next to it and even attached to the convention center via tunnel. People like to hang out there, which boy do they. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I wasn't sure if people were going to go there. I had no idea, but I was like, all right, let's go out. Let's do something. So I decided to go to the Jam tournament, and I was like, all right, going to go watch. And I had learned from Joe that a bunch of them were at a panel. So I was like, all right, cool. You guys have fun. I'll do my thing, whatever. So I go to the Jam tournament. Now, me being me and not knowing anything, I was like, this might be a dumb question. Can you watch these tournaments? So I asked one of the enforcers, I'm like, do you have to play? Can you just like hang out? And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. You're totally fine. Do you want to play? And I'm like, excuse me, what? Because the signups open like at 9 a.m. in the morning. You go there, you solidify your spot, and you're good. Well, apparently the Jam tournament had space. There was a Gang Beast tournament that had space, and there was the Blitz tournament that had space. And I'm like, I haven't played any of these games. I don't want to get my ass kicked. And like, it's free. Who cares? And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So I ended up signing up for the Jam tournament. I was like, great. So I was sitting there waiting for a little while. I was looking up instructions on my phone of like, how do I even play this game? What button does what? While that's going on, there was a giant Street Fighter 6 tournament, which looked like a lot of fun. It was a good crowd there. So eventually people start rolling in for like check-in for this tournament. And I was like, there's not that many people. Eventually people showed up. But I think it ended up being like 20 people participating. Somehow your boy got a bye to round 2. So, hey, wasn't out in the first round. But when I did play, I wouldn't say destroyed. I did lose by 20. But I think I had a decent showing, sinking some threes, catching up a little bit here and there. There was definitely a lot of times I was messing up buttons, messing up shoot, messing up pass, getting those two swapped. But it was a good time. I had fun with that and meeting some people there. So went through that. That went for a while. And then, like I said, Joe and some others were at the Tinder panel. Yes, you did hear that right. Video game Tinder. They were at that, which apparently was a great time. I was like, all right, I'll meet up with you guys after. So I walked over in the convention center and went over to the Expo hall, or the conference room for that, excuse me, whatever you want to call it. And I will say this, something else that I discovered, like a lot of people, the show floor, where all the games and stuff are, closes at 6. A lot of people leave there. There is so much open space to like chill, hang out with friends, go to these panels. After the show floor or the technical show floor ends, like people are just chilling. Like it's awesome. And there was a few times that I definitely took advantage of that. So I decided to go over there to the panel room, meet those guys. That's when I met Light, her husband Dan. I met Billy the Door there. And we talked for a little while, and then we went to the Westin, the hangout spot. And that's where I met some more people. Jacob McCourt for the first time. Joseph Hooper, I think I met last year, but this is kind of like a reintroduction. And I don't remember last names. Luke and Claire, they got engaged. There was a party for them the next day. That was awesome. All very, very nice. Shout out to Jacob McCourt. This is my first time meeting him. A very kind person. I've been talking with him online here and there, at least interacting. He hosts a panel at PAX that we'll be talking about later, but video game trivia. Does a fantastic job of that. But it was really cool to finally meet him, talk with him. Called it a night, not too much longer after that. I probably should have stayed. I probably should have hung out a little bit more, talked more, but I don't know. I was just like, I should have stayed. I don't know why I left. I'll just leave it at that. But it's cool to see everybody. Head back to the room, kind of talked with Joe about what day 1 was. So day 2, so we're on a Friday. Oh boy, breakfast was busy. Hotel was bumping that morning. So day 1 at the convention center, warm. Had jeans, t-shirt, hoodie, my typical day-to-day. Oh boy, bad decision, warm. So what did I do Saturday? Let's correct. Let's wear shorts. Let's not wear a hoodie. Let's have the hair down. Let's put a hat on. Holy shit, it was cold as fuck outside. Joe and I trekking it out in the cold, foggy wilderness, heading to the convention center. Our dumbasses not walking back 10 feet to grab our coats. We're like, nah, we're fine. We're going to be cool. It's going to be great at the convention center. We're going to be warm again. We'll be, a little bit more regulated with what we're wearing. Ooh, that was just the beginning of it. So we got there, played some more games, caught up with the 6-1 guys again by the Behemoth booth. Saw Harry from 6-1 there. Nice to catch up with him. Met him for the first time last year. And then your boy's been going through some burnout, as we've talked about. So I decided to try out a panel for the first time at PAX and went to a panel called Streaming for Fun, Not Profit. This was what I needed. Not that, I'm magically cleared. Cleared? What did I try to say there? Cured. No, but this was like the real talk honesty that I needed to be like, hey, this is not all sunshine and rainbows. The panel itself, only the woman in charge who was running it, she was the only Twitch partner. The rest were all affiliates who have been streaming for like 5+ years. Something like that. Variety of stuff, very niche, and have earned little to no money doing this. And I was like, wow, thank you for opening with this. Like, not just having it like, oh, we're all awesome and you guys will, they were very awesome people, but like, we have all the riches and successes in the world. It was nice to hear from people who are going through a similar situation. I'll say that. So that panel was great. Like I said, it was blunt, honest. There was no nonsense. And I just really needed to kind of hear what they were talking about. And they talked about like what they wish they had learned or knew rather when they started streaming. Talked about like knowing your budget, don't spend too much. Just, obviously having fun with it, how to combat certain things like burnout and whatnot. I was able to ask a question about burnout and they were very kind enough to answer it. So shout out to them. Amazing people. I didn't know any of them going into it, but I just really appreciated once again their honesty with that panel and their kindness. Just a really great time. And I'm really glad I went to it. I was really debating it because I was like, this is going to go 50-50. This is either going to help you or this is going to put you deeper in the hole and make you feel even worse about yourself. And I will say I definitely think it was more the positive side of things. So glad I took the chance and decided to go to that. This is where I was a little bit more negative. Line sucked. Tried to play more games, but no luck. Like I said, that was kind of when I ran into the media bubble of like the interviews and stuff like that happening on the fly. Not on the fly, but happening there when there wasn't a lot of movement. So it got a little in my head there. But then it turned around a little. We had a very cool moment. So I've mentioned before, there was a list of things I had written down leading into the convention with like all the announcements coming up or coming out for it. Like, all right, these are games I want to play. These are panels I might want to do. The console tourneys, whatever. And then I learned, there's a meet and greet that's going to be happening for Adam Cole, AEW, formerly NXT, formerly all the other stuff. And I was like, oh shit, I want to see if I can meet him. He's going to be at this booth on Saturday for an hour. Great. We're going to put a reminder in your phone. You're going to get notified of this an hour before. You're going to go that line because I've missed opportunities. TwitchCon, Maximilian Dude, RIP. Missed opportunities because not lining up with enough time, poor organization, whatever. I was like, I am going to be prepped for this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to go talk to the booth Friday. I'm going to know exactly what their plan is. I'm going to know exactly where they're lining up, what they're doing, all that jazz. Ready for this. Cole's the man. So I do all that Friday, and I'm like, cool. All right. They didn't give me a lot of info, but I feel prepared for Saturday, right? So I'm walking around. I find a game that I was really looking forward to. And I'm like, all right, I'm here. Just be patient. I know your feet hurt, but this is your line. Stick with it. Then the media thing happens, and I'm standing there, looking around. Yep, all these people. And I look down the aisle, and I see gentlemen around my height, pretty tan, hair up. You look familiar. You Adam Cole? Miss him. See him again. I go, oh shit, it is Adam Cole. I said, fuck this line. Just beelined it right towards him. Nobody's around him. No one's giving him the time of day. Not in a bad way. Just, he was there. He was chilling. He was incognito, and he probably hated it. No, he didn't. But I go up. Excuse me, you're Adam Cole? Yeah. Awesome. So we talked a little bit about the convention. This was his first PAX East. He talked about, like, getting there, decided to get there early. He wasn't going to have a lot of time at home after the last wrestling show. So got a photo with him. That was awesome. Just a fun time. I did good. I didn't stumble over my words like I do even now. We had a good conversation. Said my, the little quick blurb that probably everybody says. Loved you in this, the other thing. So happy for you. Shook his hand again. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Have a great PAX. Poof, and then I was out of there. But that was very cool, having that opportunity just to have that experience, on a whim, out of nowhere. So that was very cool. So after that interaction, I walked around a little bit more. Nothing was really calling out to me in terms of games. All the lines were pretty long. And we were winding down for the day of, like, in terms of, like, the expo hall is going to close in, like, an hour and a half. So I was like, all right, I'm going to walk back to the hotel. Keyword there is walk. Follow-up word is bad decision. I told you how that morning sucked. Well, the rain did show up. So I decided to walk back because everybody's going to be getting an Uber. It's going to be expensive as hell, or it's going to take a while. It's only a 9-minute walk. I can make it. I made it. I was drenched. It's cold as hell. Drenched, cold as hell. Got back to the hotel, and I was just out of it. Took care of myself, swapped everything, just chilled for a bit. I think I turned on The Office on TV. And I was kind of just out. I was vibing, just bed, dead. And at this point, I learned that work stuff had cleared up, so I was like, oh, thank God. And that's not on my shoulder. Frustrated from the day, minus the win. But being like, man, just the 2 days you weren't here last year, did you do much with it? Yeah. So I decide, all right, get out of your head. Stop it. You're here to have fun. You're here, you traveled for this. Take advantage of it. Go out. Go be social. Now, kids, this is where I'm going to teach you a lesson. Don't be like me. Yes, kick yourself in the butt. Yes, motivate yourself to push yourself to do things outside of your norm that you're not comfortable with. Don't be like me. Check in with people before you do anything. Before you get these big strides of confidence, motivation, whatever it is. See what people are doing. It is so heartbreaking when you build yourself up, motivate yourself to go out, and no one's there. So I did all the prep. I went back out, went to the Westin, because like I said, that seems to be the default. That seems to be the hangout location. I'm scanning. I'm looking for anybody I know. Not a soul. Text Joe. Text Kyle. Don't want to be up their ass. I don't want to be like, hey, hang out with me. I'm like, hey, I'm at the Westin. I don't see anybody. What's going on? Or something along those lines. Turns out, Luke and Claire had a engagement party that everyone had thrown for them. Lovely. So happy that they did that. And they were hanging out. I was like, okay, no problem. No worries. That got in my head a little bit. Granted, why? Why would that get in my head a little bit? Silly stuff. However, decided, all right, I'll hang out for a little bit. Maybe I'll catch up with them later. Went to the expo hall. Walked around a little bit. Like I said, it's very empty. Explored. Found a very comfy chair. Kind of just sat there and chilled for like an hour and a half. Just chilling. Just hanging out. While I was doing that, there was a group of friends that walked up, didn't interact with me, not saying that, but came up. They set up like chairs and stuff for themselves, and they were playing some type of werewolf or mafia type game, and I was like, oh, that's great. Like, that just made my heart happy of like all these people getting together, they're hanging out, they're playing something, just enjoying their time. I was like, that's awesome. So hung out in that area for a little bit, and then I was like, all right, nothing's happening tonight. Went back to the hotel, and I think I just passed out. So day 2, a little bit of a mixed, but like I said, it was on me. It was on me and just all the negativity whirling around in there about myself. So heading into Saturday, so this is the busy day, typically. And boy, was it. Slept in, didn't mean to, but didn't have an alarm set, so why would I? Surprisingly, did not have a headache this day. I did better at hydrating on Friday. Slept in, played some more games that day. Shocker. Took a lot of B-roll footage, which, another little lesson for myself. If you think you've taken enough B-roll footage, you have not. You'll see it sporadically through this podcast to try and sprinkle it in, but should have taken much more footage of the event. Just to share with you guys and make something out of it, but took some, not enough. And then Saturday, I was kind of over being mad. So I was like, all right, I played 4 games that day. Just do this for yourself. Just do your own thing. Just have fun. There was another person that late, they made the announcement they were going to be at PAX, Unruly/Kenny from Yo Video Games. He was going to be there with Cleo Thomas? Sorry, don't remember his name. The guy from Holes. Many years ago. They were going to be doing a Power Stone 2 type of event. Not presentation, but thing at the PAX Arena, which is like their esports thing. So there's seats all around. You got the Jumbotron, and people are mainly playing Tekken throughout the weekend for their almost a pro tournament. But they were doing Power Stone for like 3 hours. So I was like, all right, cool. Maybe I'll see Kenny. This will be one of our random encounters. Because no offense, yes, Kenny's very popular. He's not someone where everybody's going to know him. So it's like, maybe we'll have that random encounter like an Adam Cole. See him, get a photo, catch up. I met Kenny many, many years ago. 2016, 2015 at WonderCon out in California, just randomly. So I was like, oh, cool. Maybe we could do that again. So went there, cheered him on, and then I was like, lunchtime, jumped out. And then I was like, you know what? I just feel like chilling. My feet were hurting. I'd done a lot of walking. Like I said, just do it for you. So I decided to go back to the PAX Arena. And realized it's a little late. But they were having people from the audience come up. One would play with Kenny, one would play with Cleo. And play the 4-player game together. I was like, ooh, maybe I could do that. Unfortunately, no. Like I said, I got there a little bit late. I think they only did 1 more round, maybe 2, after I was there. But it was nice seeing them at least on the stage. I think Kenny did notice me Saturday. I didn't mention, but I was doing cosplay as Ted from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I think that stood out. Did anybody call me out for it? No. Hopefully people whispered to themselves like, oh, there's that. But so maybe not the most successful cosplay, but granted, it's a gaming convention, whatever. So was having fun watching that. Kenny was destroying in Power Stone 2. And then they went back, took a little break. Then the host came out, Xavier Woods, WWE. He came out. I was like, oh, cool. Good to see Woods. All right. Maybe we'll do a little interaction there. Didn't happen. That's fine. But cool to see him. And then, I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Why I didn't even think this was something that probably would have happened. Woods, Kenny Omega. They're friends, even though they pretend not to be friends. They have history. Why wouldn't they play video games together? So Kenny Omega came out, played more Power Stone. You had Kenny Squared as a team, and Woods and Cleo on a team. Kenny's were doing well. Omega was not doing well in Power Stone. I will say that. And then they played some of the other games from the Capcom Collection, Fighting Collection 2, which I think comes out next week. So it's pretty much like a big advertisement for that. Then they did a one-on-one. They talked about the up, up, down, down bell. They talked about was challenging for an AEW belt, did a little bet, yada yada, whatever. It was just fun. It was entertaining. It was a nice way to chill out, relax for like 3 hours watching those guys. It was a good time. Glad I did that. Got a lot of good shots there. And then Saturday was where the second panel was that I absolutely wanted to go to. So I did a quick stop back to the hotel, refreshed, and went right back out for video game trivia. So I shouted out Jacob McCourt earlier. He's the host of this. He's done a few of these across PAXs. He did not do last year to my knowledge. Maybe he did, and it was a day I was not there. But I've watched the YouTube videos for it, and I was like, definitely want to go to this one. Jacob does an amazing job with trivia. And it's not just your typical trivia where it's like, obviously there's questions and answers. That sounds silly. But he puts a very nice spin and presentation on things where it's highly entertaining. Whether you play games or not, like, you're going to laugh, you're going to smile, you're going to chuckle. And I think he did an amazing job with Saturday's show. So I was really looking forward to that. He is planning on, he did record it. He plans on editing and putting it out sometime later this month. So as soon as that is out, please go check out his channel. I'll try and share it and post it on socials because it was an amazing panel. Highly recommend everybody check that out. But leading up to it, once again, wanted to be there early because it's like, I don't know how popular this thing is going to be. And I want to be there to support my friends and new friends. So it was like, I'll line up an hour ahead of time. Line in or get there. They got staging rooms for it. There's a couple people there already. I was like, all right, good for you. That room filled up rather quickly. And good for them. So as I was in line, I met some other people. I think another set of brothers. One of them had just gotten a Dice Throne game, I think. It was a Marvel one that I've seen around. Asked his brother if he wanted to play. And his brother was like, I don't even know how to play. And I was like, learn on the fly, man. Just joking around. And they laughed at that. But then the brother didn't want to play. So the other one asked me. I was like, sure, why not? So they were very nice, both of them. That was cool. We played the game for about 45 minutes. Didn't get through the whole thing. But it was a good time. And I think, honestly, he might have sold another copy of that game if I can find it. So that was fun. Like I said, then we headed into trivia. I walked in. Joe was there. Dan was there because Light was one of the panel participants. CG Danny B was one of the panel participants. I didn't know the other three. Steve Saylor was there, which I've seen him online but never met him personally, but he's a big accessibility guy. It's a great panel, but I walked in there and I was like, all right, well, I'll get relatively close. So I get to the front, like fourth row, I think. And I see Joe and Dan, and there's a seat next to him. And I was just going up to be playful. I was just trying to be like, hey, try and be funny. So I go up and I'm like, oh, you guys think you're hot shit just because you're media? You can be in the front row. Totally went over their heads because they were having their own conversation prior. But Joe's like, sit down. What do you? And then I'm immediately like defensive mode. I'm like, whoa, maybe they have somebody sitting. He's like, sit down. I'm like, okay. So I appreciate Joe for that. So we got to sit front row for that. And like I said, Jake did an amazing job. Absolutely amazing. Had a lot of fun with that. And then it was the sad part because a lot of people were leaving Sunday morning and traveling back home. So we hung outside the panel rooms afterwards, said our goodbyes. And like I said, this was kind of the healing moment for me of like, yes, you were in your head, stupid. You are cared for or at least appreciated. And people do like you. Had a lovely interaction with the 6-1 crew. Once again, Mike, Kelsey, Kyle, Harry. Good interaction with Joe. Good interaction with like people I had just met that weekend. Light, Dan, CG, Danny. I'll just say Danny. Why do we say his username? And some other people here and there that I had interacted with quick. But yeah, it just meant a lot. People were very nice. People joked around. The hugs, the goodbyes. It was nice. Like I said, it was healing. It just sucked that it took until day 3 for me to feel part of it. And that's just something I have to get over. So appreciate all those guys and their kindness and their patience. So they said their goodbyes. I went one way and walked around the panel, or not the panel, the convention center a little bit more. Just kind of look around, see if there's anything to do. I eventually walked back to the hotel. And then we got to Sunday, early morning. Got even earlier than any of the other days. I think when I got in line, I kind of waited in an even farther up section. I was like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. Waited for about an hour. That sucked. But played a lot of games right off the bat. Did some shopping for myself. I got some cool t-shirts. I got a Hades shirt. I got some Pokemon shirts. I got, from Limited Run, I got Chicory physically. Ooh, green screen does not like you, brother. There we go. So just a beautiful game there. Happy I got that. I saw some other people too, some other content creators who have made tip videos in the past. Got to say hi to one of them. Just thanked her for like making those tip videos, for like what to prep for the con and whatnot, because they were very helpful last year. Had lunch and I left. Long drive home. Actually went pretty fast once again. Very thankful for that. I mentioned it earlier, but tried to do a second podcast, but my phone was overheating, so no luck there. And overall, yeah, PAX was... Wow, I've been talking for a while. PAX was very good. I had a great time with it. It was just, more the sadness of, like, it's over. The regret of not capitalizing. I'm going to keep using that word. Not doing what I intended to do. I did bring... the handy... I guess not. I did bring lapel mics. As you guys saw with the last podcast, I was like, oh, these are cheap, inexpensive on Amazon. I'll just bring these, do like vlog style talk over and go into the convention center and talk about stuff that I'm interacting with. I see and playing. Never did that. Got in my head. Wasn't brave. So there was a few missed opportunities. I was going to make some more content over PAX, maybe talk about games I had played, or do daily vlogs there, but it is what it is. I mean, granted, the lapels were very last minute. Like, I think they made it maybe day before, or day prior, the one before that to the apartment to even go. So maybe next year. All in all, good. Just some closing things about the Expo floor, I guess, for those of you guys wondering what was even there prior to the games. So I talked about Elden Ring. I know I have some Elden Ring fans who listen here. So they had Night Rain there. You get an opportunity to play Night Rain and hang out and see all that stuff, right? Not really. So I heard of this secondhand through my friends who either heard it themselves or whatever. So Elden Ring had a bubble. Just a big canopy bubble for Night Rain. Just the one. Those lines were packed the entire time. Makes sense. It's a big game, right? They let only, to my knowledge, 75 people in. I don't know if it was at a time or a day, each day. And then there was a standby line. So you could have a chance to get into the bubble. So you're like, okay, all right, that kind of sucks. Longer lines, whatever, but at least you get in the bubble, right? And you get to play. Apparently you didn't even get to play. Apparently you watched other people play, like the devs play, and you just get to watch it in the bubble. What the fuck? That was a huge waste of time. Like, that could have been such a huge win and cool thing to do if that was there for people to interact with and play, but no. Final Fantasy not meet and greets, but where the meet and greets were held for the wrestlers and Ben Starr. The Final Fantasy photo ops, those were kind of cool. I didn't personally participate, but that was a nice thing. Larian was there again. They kind of had the same booth with cosplayers and whatnot from last year, from what I could tell. Devolver was there this year, which I was super excited for because they missed out last year. And that booth kind of just sucked. The games, great. The booth with merch, sucked. And I was like, I'm not a vinyl guy, so maybe that's on me. But like, it seemed like they only had vinyls, maybe a few t-shirts. There wasn't much. And I was like, oh, man. I was looking forward to that one. Pokemon did the same thing as last year. They had the card game. They had Scarlet and Violet. Everybody had these little like Eevee crowns of their favorite Eeveelution. I guess I'll talk about just the last thing before we get into the games. The indie games. A lot of good stuff there. I talked about labeling earlier. Labeling, in my opinion, was awful this year. There were not a lot of standout booths in terms of visuals of like, hey, come over here, play our game. This is really cool. There wasn't a lot of that, and it wasn't really clear what game was being offered a lot. Granted, this is me. There were things out there. I learned more about what was at the convention through other people and Blue Sky posts than the actual convention itself. Now, maybe this is just my dumb brain and not paying attention, but I was like, what? Where was that game? Where was this? Where was that? And it was like this discovery each and every day of like more and more. And then I'm like, oh, there's this booth. There's Critical Reflex. There's Constance at Bite Rockers, I think. Yeah, Bite Rockers, which has 6 games here. And Indie.io has their 6. And then there's this thing over at PAX Rising. Like, not super clear. So that kind of sucked. And I will say this, and it's tough, and it's, once again, little man down here, me yelling at Big Sky and the system, just complaining, I guess. Publishers had booths. So I talked about Bite Rockers, and I talked about Indie.io. Fantastic. That's awesome. They have a lot of projects there that they're trying to promote. That's great. I think each of them had maybe 6 or 7 games there. It was not clear what was there, what's offered. I think they had, Bite Rockers had 3 or 4 stations. You could play any of the games. Great. Like, I just felt like they didn't really bring in a lot of traffic. Like, I feel like a lot of people played Constance, but not the other stuff. Like, I wanted to go there for Constance, and I was like, I think I played this at Next Fest. Let's play something else. I don't feel like it did a lot of justice to those individual games with just like how it was presented. It was just the banners in the back, and I don't mean to shit on them alone. Like Indie.io is the same thing, where it's one. Indie.io is a little different. They had 1 station per game. I talked about lines earlier. With that setup, lines not very clear, and I get it. Booths are expensive, tech is expensive, equipment's expensive. I wonder if it just would have been more beneficial just to be organized a little differently, or bring less to the party and have more stations per game. It's easy, once again, for me to say as Joe Schmo, oh, this sucked, you need to change it. I don't know what you do there. I just didn't feel, and once again, maybe it's me and my observation, I didn't feel that way last year. I felt like each game was very clear, this is our game, and there was multiple stations for it. Like Critical Reflex, I heard a lot of amazing things about their booth and a lot of like great hits. Hard to tell what game was on each station until you actually saw this little thing on top of it. But some of the stations were facing away from you and were against the wall, so I didn't know what games were over there. I didn't play Gimmico, one of our games we're going to talk about later, until the last day, because I was like, oh, okay, that is where it is. And that was another one. 5 games, each had their own station, and then the 6th one was for media. It's just like, I don't know if you're getting as much out of this as you are with how confusing this setup is. And once again, maybe it's my untrained eye or little to no experience with these events. It just felt like a miss. I know sets and all that stuff too. That's expensive. I'm not saying you got to have these outrageous booths. Those ones are fun to see. Don't get me wrong. But I get you got to work with what you have, and it's a big budgetary thing. I just wish things were clearer, or at least you could get that traffic in better with better messaging to the general public, I guess. So, another negative, not to end on that. All in all, had a great time. If you haven't gone to PAX, I would highly recommend it. Little interesting to see where it will go with the games industry and how that's going, but there's a lot of things to do here. Whether you are in there for the games, a lot of options. If you're there for the tabletop stuff, you have a fuck ton of options. Like, I barely explored that side of the floor, but D&D dice, figurines, paint, I think I already said dice, but dice. Board games you could play right there. Just rent a game and take it. Purchase it. The D&D sessions, play areas for a while. If you want to bring your own PC and play that, you could do that. A lot of different panels and variety of stuff. The video game tourneys, the free play lounge. A lot of options. A very cool thing to go to. So if you've been kind of on the fence, you got a year. I think the next one's in March. At least PAX East. PAX West is like a few months. Highly recommend you go check it out. It is a lot of fun, especially if you can go with people. Just have those social interactions, because that's definitely another cherry on the top of this cake of like, this is why you go. You know, you may not get to play everything. You won't get to play everything. But those interactions, that camaraderie, that's why you're going to go and have a good time. So, PAX East.